policy and implementation is part of a monthly peer mentoring series that we'll be hosting up until March. And this series is part of our First Nations Home EnergySave program. So what Fraser Basin Council is doing with this program is working with First Nations communities and support organizations to reduce energy use, share success stories, and build local capacity and economic development. If you're interested to learn more details about this program, we have more information up on our website, and you can see the link at the bottom of the slide. I also like to take a moment to thank our funders, the Real Estate Foundation of BC, BC Ministry of Energy and Mines, BC Hydro, and Aboriginal Affairs and Northern Development Canada. So just a bit on webinar logistics. Right now we have everyone's audio muted to limit background noise. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And since we have a smaller group today, what we'll do is if you're interested in making a comment or asking a question, you can write in the question box on your side panel and just mention, comment or want to talk, and we can then unmute you so you can speak verbally. And if you have any technical difficulties throughout this webinar, you can also mention that in the question box, or you can send an email to fraserbasin@gmail.com. So for today's presentation, as I mentioned, it's Kitasoo Energy Efficient Housing Policy and Implementation. And a bit of background on Kitasoo. It's located in Klemtu on BC's central coast. The village is powered by a community-owned small hydro plant with a diesel generator backup. And as the community grows, there's a strong need to reduce electricity use to allow for more development and to limit the use of additional diesel. So today we're really fortunate to have two great speakers, Jamie Pond, who is the housing manager at Kitasoo First Nation, and also Jillian Awi-Vines, who is the principal of Pina Sustainability. So right now I'm going to turn it over to them for their presentation. So bear with us for a moment. Is this working?
Yeah, there we go. You can see
Great.
it now.
Okay, great. So we'll just take a minute to say hello to everyone. I think that there are some familiar faces and some not familiar faces. So I just want to say hello. Jim, you might want to show your face too so they know who's speaking. I'm Jillian. Is Jamie online? Yeah, Jamie's online. So that's, and we'll start our presentation. So I'm going to turn it off now. Okay. So we're happy today to talk a little bit about what's happening with the Kitasoo Xai'xais First Nations Energy Initiative. There's been a lot of work lately put forward in this community to reduce energy demand, in addition to, of course, looking at clean energy projects. A big first step, of course, is reducing demand, so we're right-sizing those energy projects. So this is what the presentation today will be focused on. Jimmy, do you want to talk a little bit about the history of energy, and I'll take it after that?
Well, we've had our own generator since 1981, which was upgraded in 2011. But it came up to capacity, and our village was experiencing brownouts, blackouts. We were topped out with our needs. When we started discussing new building projects with homes and lot development and things like that, we realized our current power would not allow for that. So we brought in Jill from PINA Sustainability to kind of help us out, and the Great Bear Initiative. We came up with a clean energy plan, and our facilitator's been at it since 2012, and moving forward, yep.
That's great. So we've been, as was mentioned, the Great Bear, Kitasoo is part of what's called the Great Bear Initiative. And the Great Bear Initiative came out of the Reconciliation Protocol that was signed in 2011, and part of that work had a Clean Energy Action Plan associated with it. So many on the call or on the webinar today were part of that initiative which started this work and really forms a foundation of this work. The Clean Energy Action Plan really is around improving reliability, getting off fossil fuels, and managing demand in communities that are remote off-grid, mostly served by diesel. Part of that plan, the implementation of that plan, is made possible by hiring an energy facilitator to make sure implementation continues to move forward. And I've been in that role. I'm very blessed to be in that role since 2012, supporting the Six Nations, the Great Bear Initiative, the Great Bear community move forward on their individual kind of nation-led energy projects. So one thing that happened with the Kitasoo Xai'xais is back when the community electricity, the remote community, RCE, remote community electrification program at Pisa Hydro was in place. The community energy plan without engagement, so to speak. So the electricity plan pointed out energy restrictions in the community. It was the first time that people started really thinking, hey, wait a second, if we look at the numbers, we look like we're approaching capacity. And part of that was, well, what can we do to get off diesel as well, because there's a lot of heating oil used in the community. Some partners on the call today, I believe, Arif is on the call today. He helped us explore how heat pumps may be able to be incorporated into the community and to reduce diesel use for heating. And part of that pointed once again to the fact that our system's at capacity, and we need to do more than just put heat pumps in. We need to look at how to reduce demand before we explore that option. So they're recommending to do housing upgrades before any new generation or heat pumps are added. So with that, there wasn't a lot of engagement done with this work just because of timing and constraints. So with that, there was interest in doing some engagement and moving this file forward. And I'll just mention where the funds came from. So this file sat a bit stagnant for a while without any funds to support it moving forward. So GBI would help sort of on those sidelines, but there really needed to be a bigger investment to start getting this project off the ground. And so in April of this year, there was some money available from Strategic Partnerships Initiative that was put towards what we're calling the Energy Management Phase 1. And the scope of work that was put together for this included housing audits, some local training to make sure that local people could be involved in the economic opportunities made from housing upgrades. 8 building upgrades were completed, as well as a program to enhance community literacy. So that's the pieces, and I believe many of you have received a flyer today talking about in more detail what all those were, but we'll go through it right now as well. So a big piece of this work, Darren Edgar, the band manager, would say to me when we were working together with Great Bear that, folks here think electricity is free, and just even though there's a policy not to use space heaters, everyone plugs it in because they think it's free, clean energy, and this is a problem. So it was decided that we need to be creative and innovative in how we speak to the community about what the assets they have are and how they work and why they're important and why we need to conserve energy. So to achieve this, we conceived kind of a crazy idea, and I'll let Jamie talk to it in a minute, but to go to Marvin Island, which is an island remote. It was about a 3-hour boat ride for us in a slow boat, away from the Kitasoo, away from Klemtu, and we went and met the school on their annual camping trip, and we did a skit. You can see these makeshift props we made, and pretty much acted out, went right from rain to lake levels to a penstock to a generator, measuring electricity, to demand, and showed the kids and their parents and teachers the importance, how it works and why it's important, and it went pretty well. Jamie, you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, initially we had scheduled a regular community meeting at our hall, and we're going to present there. But then later on, I found out that everybody was vacating and going out to their remote camping area where there's no electricity. And I asked Jill, I said, this is a crazy idea, but there's not going to be anybody in the village. Why don't we just go out to Marvin Island? And everybody else was scheduled to go out on their faster boats, and we ended up going on an old troller. So we took 3 hours. They took an hour. But once we got there, it was like a captivated audience, and all the kids were crammed into this cabin here, and they are all just fascinating with what was going on. And moving forward, it's been the kids that have been the backbone of interest and having parents become interested. So that was a really interesting side learning.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it was definitely a fun thing to do. Why was it important? Well, it definitely was engaging, and there's lots of curiosity, and it built some community interest around energy. Students and teachers now are wanting to spread the message to the broader community, and we were asked to go back and present again to the broader community. And it's also important that everyone understands how much electricity we're using and how it's possible to use less. So you can see in here different community members holding up signs of appliances that use electricity, and rather than showing a typical graph to an audience, we decided to have a kind of a participatory graphing exercise where we use participants' bodies to represent how much energy was used by those different appliances, and it was really helpful for people to understand, like, wow, our space heaters, like, we have 2 people for our fridge and we've got 15 people for our space heaters. We got to think about, what are some other options for when we're feeling cold. So it was really a successful approach.
And this was a really profound learning tool as well, because our folks are very visual, and when things are written on paper, you're going to lose a lot of audience. But when we stood people up, that was a strong message to how much power was actually going into things that they shouldn't even be using.
Yeah. So it's interesting because the purpose of today is to talk about our housing policy, but what we're trying to show is that housing policy was sort of something that came as an additional thing to the work we were already doing with demand side management. So the project as conceived was, to upgrade some houses, to take stock of what needs to be done so we can do a bigger upgrade later through energy audits, and to do some training, to do some engagement. And then as a side piece, Jamie said, well, can we, I'm writing a new housing policy, can we put some energy efficiency language into this? So not even a central component, this started to grow, and realizing, well, all of these pieces that we're seeing can really fit together into the housing policy that's being updated. So our first step was to have a BCR signed to support energy efficiency in existing and new homes. And some of the notes. I mean, you've been given the policy on a handout, the detailed policy language that you can use and refer to as you wish. But just as a highlight, things we were aiming for: energy performance will be better than the BC Building Code. Energy assessments will happen before walls are completed and before occupancy. There'll be a blower door test before to make sure that buildings are performing, houses are performing before the builders are paid, because we heard lots of stories about work not being done and the builders out there because he's gone because, or he or she is gone because the bills were already paid. Also training for new occupants. As you have a new home that's built in an innovative way, you want to make sure people know how to maintain it, and also that the band has maintenance staff that can maintain homes in an energy efficient way, and have training on, they have a building inspector in town, so they're not having to fly people in, and they have an energy inspector in town to do this work. Also, once again, supporting a local economy for building. Now, one thing we want to mention with the new homes is, Jamie, like, this is kind of one of those projects that continues to emerge as we're going. And halfway through, or towards the end almost, Jamie said, hey, I heard about this wicked project happening in the Chilliquit First Nation. They're building passive houses. Now, how can we take what they've done and do it in Clemtu? So we started a passive housing pilot project, and our hope here is to reshape the way houses are built. New homes are built on reserve in British Columbia. The process we're following is there's an architect who has given us his drawings. This is a house that was built in the Chilliquit Nation using the drawings of David Wong. He's given us the prototype drawings, and he's working with us in kind to help us find a builder, hire a builder, and invite the builder, the architect, the families who will be living in houses, elders, youth, community members, a big community meeting, a big design charrette, to see how can we take the passive house prototype design and ground truth it for Clemtu to be culturally appropriate in the existing budget that communities have to build homes. So we're not making an expensive house. Our goal is to use the same amount of money that would usually be spent on building a standard home on reserve. From there, we go into detailed design. And that's why the builder's involved right in the beginning, because we're agreeing that he's going to build for that price. So make sure we don't have things in there that can't be done. After detailed design, we're building a house, and then what our lessons from that will go and update this policy. So our policy isn't fixed in place. It can be updated and improved as we learn more about our new homes. And another thing that's important about this is it can be done elsewhere. We're open and really interested in supporting nations to have these, to ground truth passive houses to the context of their community and their cultural context. So we're pretty excited about this project. In terms of existing, Jamie, go ahead.
We came across that project with having 2 of our homes burned down, and so out of tragedy, we did have insurance money on these homes, and that was the basis of confidence for us to move forward. We did have to seek additional funding to top that up, but we're just taking a bad situation and using it to our advantage to use these as demonstration houses for our new lots and housing development in the future.
Yeah, that's great. And that also reminds me that this is, energy and economic development go hand in hand. And so we're bringing community members in here, and we're asking, what skills do you have that you can contribute to building homes in your communities? So really, once again, trying to link economic development with and energy and job creation. For our existing homes will be upgraded according to need. Activities such as air sealing, new windows when necessary, improved insulation, improved ventilation, lighting and water fixtures upgrade, and control systems will be put in place as needed as funds are available. And we're looking at new energy efficient appliances as necessary. So when the life of the appliance has come to an appliance has come to the end of its useful life, it'll be replaced with a more efficient appliance.
Yes.
So this is ambitious and needs some resources to move forward. One of the resource needs is funds to complete the passive housing project. So these are soft costs associated with the charrette and the design, not with the construction. So it's imagined that after the soft costs have been spent, the community will have a relationship with a builder with experience in the community who can continue to build homes in partnership with contractors who live in the nation in the future. So the soft costs are a one-time cost up front. Also looking for resources to hire and train a staff person to manage and support the upgrades and maintenance, and to be trained as a building inspector and to be trained as an energy auditor. So you have that resource again in community, building that local economy. In terms of process, we're embedding efficiency into the regular maintenance procedures. So we have a material list, and we're working with contracted services to exploring how to best make that happen, so move forward, because right now a lot of maintenance happens through contracted services. So there's still some process requirements for implementation. Anything to add, Jamie?
Nope, that sounds about right.
I think you were going to say something about Andrew.
It's all well and easy to say hire and train staff person to manage and upgrade. But the fact of the matter is, you have to find people who have an aptitude for that work. When we've put various folks through different trainings, not all of them work out as people we can use in those capacities. So we take the ones that do have a true aptitude for it and try to move them forward. So you have to identify people who can actually do the job. It's not just a matter of handing out training.
Yeah. So throughout the engagement we were doing over the summer, a few folks really stood out as interested and capable, and we got them involved in the training, and even approached them saying, would you be interested in transitioning towards this sort of role? So there's a bit of grooming that happens as you're setting up your economic development to succeed, because that, of course, is a challenge. You don't want to invest resources and then the person leaves or something happens. So that's one thing we've been
And in keeping with how this continues to go, it just seems that the youth and the young people really have a strong interest in pursuing these kinds of things more so than the older generations. So we've identified a youth, in his later 20s, who is interested in doing this kind of work. So we're seeking additional funding to get him up and running and doing a lot of the maintenance type work for these items.
Okay, I think that's the end of our time slot, so I'll turn it back to Elena.